Friday late morning, we learned about a tragic situation. A family exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning. And you hear these stories, and sometimes you say to yourself, boy, people still don't know about this stuff and the dangers therein. So we'll spend some time this hour talking about that. Later this hour, in fact, we'll talk about it from the average perspective. That is to say, most of us with furnaces in our homes should be keeping track of those. And we'll talk with Ron Cusino of Able Heating and Cooling about how to do that, proper furnace maintenance. And that's later this hour. This hour, right now, in the first half, Sheriff Matt Saxton is with us. And Durk Dunham, the director of the Calhoun County Emergency Management Office, is with us, too, to talk about this from the perspective of the news that we've heard over the last few days. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having us.
I suppose before we talk about that, we can talk about the case at hand this morning, which is this vehicle in the river this morning, which now authorities think they know where it is.
Well, yeah, Richard, at this point, we have a good idea of where it's not.
Okay.
We've searched the river from the point of entry down to about the farthest point it could go. We have narrowed it down to an area where we think it is. We had some good indicators yesterday with the assistance of the Allegan County dive team and a magnet. We believe we have a good idea that it is where we think it is. However, at this time, it is a recovery, and our concern is for the safety of those recovering the vehicle. It's at a very dangerous point in the river where, in the past, actually, our dive team had a member that we almost lost there several years ago. So it is a dangerous point in the river, and right now the water's high and the current is a lot faster than normal. So we're trying to recover the vehicle and body, if in there, as safe as possible.
Ordinarily, it would be a situation where divers would go down and try and connect that car and pull it up, I presume, but this is not an option in this case.
Well, at this point, we're looking at the safest way to do that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if we need to put divers in the water to do that, we will, but we're going to do that in a safe manner and make sure everybody comes back out of the water.
Mm-hmm. I presume, because it hasn't been discussed, that it's not a situation where you can talk about circumstances that might have led up to this point.
The investigation into the accident itself, the city of Battle Creek is investigating and reconstructing. There was a witness that watched the vehicle drive in. The vehicle was said to be going at a high rate of speed, left the roadway and entered the river causeway. We do have video of it going past one of the businesses along the river there at a short time later. So we do know it was in there. And the location where it is, the waters there are up to 25 feet deep. You don't think that with the Battle Creek or Kalamazoo River,
right.
But it's right where the two rivers come together. One of them is coming out of the cement causeway, so
okay.
It is a dangerous location, even at normal water levels.
Well, best of luck taking care of that today, and understand the notion of safety, trying to approach that situation for sure.
Hopefully we get the 50% of not rain today instead of the 50% of rain.
Exactly. Yeah, it complicates matters.
It's all on you, Richard.
Yeah, it's all on me. If I only had such control, it'd be 70 degrees right now, Durk. If I had that control. We'll come back in a minute and talk about the dangers of carbon monoxide and remind you about the safety that's expected therein when we come right back on 95.3 WBCK. We're here with Sheriff Matt Saxton and Durk Dunham, the director of the Calhoun County Emergency Management Office. And coming up a little later, we'll talk about home safety as it relates to your home climate control and carbon monoxide. But I think what's motivated our talk today is this case on Friday in which there appeared to have been a makeshift heating situation that had been set up that caused some real problems. Do I have that description right?
Right. At this time, the information we have, the 3 victims from late Thursday night, Friday morning, were staying in a empty business. We're still trying to determine ownership and what was going on there, but they weren't supposed to be staying in there. Somebody had loaned them a generator for a power source to run a salamander heater. The generator was set up in a separate room inside the facility. However, it was inside the facility, and
right.
So their generator in a separate room running extension cords over to a salamander space heater. We believe the carbon monoxide was coming from that generator, but it could come from either or, a combination of the both. So unfortunately, a 11-year-old female lost her life, and the mother of that child and her boyfriend are still receiving treatment in the hospital.
This, Durk, is really exactly the kind of setup that we try to educate folks against, isn't it?
Yes. We're getting much better at putting in smoke detectors in our houses. It's encouraged by fire departments. The Red Cross has regular drives on getting fire detectors in people's houses. So we're getting better at that. But one of the things we forget is the carbon monoxide poisoning. The chance of that, there is always a risk. And I guess the message is to make sure that you look at that with some equal importance as you would a fire detector itself or a heat detector.
Mm-hmm. And anytime you're using a piece of equipment that uses gasoline like a generator does and has emissions, that's carbon monoxide.
Yeah, every single time. And you can't be safe enough when it comes to venting.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no doubt about it. When in doubt, I mean, if you have a situation that you want to do it and you're in doubt, call the fire department. I mean, that's one of the things. They're the experts. They can give you advice and probably would come out under certain circumstances to advise you. If it was a situation that couldn't be handled over the phone, I think, they would be more than willing to have some type of dialogue on that, because we all the public service providers want you to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we have to remember it's not just gasoline, it's any fuel burning, and that could be wood.
Yes, it could.
So
Charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems is we often see it during the heating time of years, the season, when we need to heat our homes. The initial symptoms of poisoning is flu-like symptoms. So without the fever is basically the only difference. So oftentimes some people may feel, well, I'm getting a flu, where really they're seeing the early onset of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be a tough one, actually, because, Consumers Energy puts in a smell in the gas so that you can smell, hopefully, or that rotten egg smell that all of us have had, at one point in time of our life. But this is odorless, colorless, and extremely dangerous.
Boy, and if you're going to fall asleep while this is running in a setup like is apparently the situation to which we responded on Friday, you don't know how you feel if you're sleeping.
Well, exactly right. We got called out there about 10:30, 11 o'clock on Thursday night. So had a passerby not heard that generator running on the inside, we today would be talking about 3 fatalities as opposed to, thankfully at this point, just the one so far. And the others are receiving treatment, but they still are in critical condition.
We're here with the Sheriff, Matt Saxton, and Durk Dunham of the Calhoun County Emergency Management Office talking about carbon monoxide poisoning. We're coming back in just a minute on 95.3 WBCK. We're here with the Sheriff, Matt Saxton, and Durk Dunham, Director of the Calhoun County Emergency Management Office, as we talk about carbon monoxide exposure. You know, when you look at this situation that called your attention on Thursday night, Friday morning, you read the tea leaves here, and it seems like there's some extenuating circumstances here. I mean, Durk made a well-intended comment about, call the fire department to make sure that what you intend to set up is safe and so on. I presume that in this situation, as you said, Sheriff, these folks were living in a place where they shouldn't have been, that probably would preclude them from wanting to check on a setup they might have been working on. And so it seems like we have an opportunity to offer a cautionary note beyond the norm here, that some folks within the sounds of our voices are in dire situations trying to keep themselves warm.
That's exactly right, Richard. We understand that not everybody's in the same situation, and sometimes with homeless or folks that are down on their luck but do have a roof over their head but can't afford that heating or something, may resort to other options for heat.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be very careful when doing that. I mean, today's day and age, our residential heating systems obviously have somebody coming in to talk about shortly, but I mean, the upkeep of them and the ventilation and the makeup, we don't see this a lot with your day-to-day residential heating. It typically is in a situation where people are using measures not often used for residential heating when it occurs, such as in a camper, just leaving a vehicle run in your garage. A lot of people don't think, even though that garage is connected, that stuff will float into the house. So starting your vehicle early in the morning.
Durk, looking at this setup that was put together in this situation with a heater indoors and then a generator indoors, would it have made any difference to put the generator outside?
Well, yeah. If it vents a noxious or poisonous type gas, and it's, as the sheriff said earlier, it's not just gasoline. It could be anything. It could be coal, wood.
Right.
It needs to vent. It needs to be and vent outside of a structure.
Mm-hmm.
And another point the sheriff made, I don't think we can overstate, is the garage. If you're going to start the car in the garage, I probably would have the door open. I probably wouldn't even do it in the garage. I'd probably pull the car out of the garage if I was going to let it run.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like common sense and it sounds like little things, but you get in a hurry and you forget to do things. But with regards to the location of any generator, anything that is powered needs to be outside in the fresh air where it can vent.
Bought a house once, home inspection, and it came back with an elevated carbon monoxide level. The seller had been running the car in the garage before she left.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
That's all
was
it took.
just the car running in the garage for that to register higher.
Right.
But it warranted further investigation at the time because you need to check these things. But, reading the circumstances here, boy, if these folks were trying to be under the radar in this building, you presume they may not have wanted to put the generator outside, hear noise, cause attention to be directed in their direction. Boy, but that is just, you can't say it enough. You can't have these things indoors.
That's exact. They're not built to be used indoors in a confined area. And they need to be used properly, used the way they're designed, and keep yourself safe. I mean, as the bottom line is, if you're trying to go undetected, if you're doing unsafe things to do that, it's not going to help when you're dead.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So, Durk, it's okay if you have some kind of a setup, as you pointed out, we want to reemphasize this, like this, or you want to use a generator in a certain kind of heating situation. It's okay to call up the non-emergency line at the fire department and ask them.
Yeah, and, local ordinances there may be a local ordinance that has specific regulations on, where you can put it, how you can wire it. That's something I'm not prepared to go into. It's not my knowledge base, but just a couple quick checks, a couple quick phone calls, have it done right the first time. Don't risk anybody's lives.
Or even your local heating and cooling provider.
Local heating and cooling provider.
Happy to check that out, too. And we're going to talk with one of those coming up in the next half hour. But in the meanwhile, we appreciate the updates from both of you. Thank you very much for the time.
Thanks for having us, Richard.
Thank you, Richard, very much.
Sheriff Matt Saxton, Durk Dunham, Calhoun County Emergency Management Office on 95.3 WBCK.